There's a small fishing village on the southern tip of Japan where the average person lives past 92, not 92 with oxygen tanks and memory loss, 92 with vegetable gardens, with grandchildren they chase, with minds that still argue, still laugh, still plan. I've spent my career studying what biology has to say about that. And one of the most consistent patterns I keep finding in epidemiological data, in molecular research, in clinical observation, isn't a drug, it isn't a procedure, it's a morning. Specifically, how these communities begin each day, what they put in their bodies in the first hour of waking, and what those choices are doing at the cellular level to their DNA, to their immune defenses, to the very machinery that decides whether a damaged cell gets repaired or starts to become something dangerous. Today I want to walk you through 5 of those habits. I'm going to tell you the science clearly and honestly, and I'm going to show you that the distance between where your body is right now and where it's capable of being is much shorter than you've been told. Let's start with something almost everyone overlooks. Habit 5, the morning drink that Western medicine forgot. Most people in the West know green tea, fewer know white tea, and almost nobody understands why the difference matters. White tea is the least processed form of the Camellia sinensis plant, the same plant that gives us green and black tea, but harvested earlier and dried without oxidation. That minimal processing preserves something remarkable, concentrations of a compound called epigalloctectin gallate, or EGCG, that are nearly 3 times higher than in standard green tea. EGCG is one of the most studied bioactive food compounds in cancer biology. Here's what makes it genuinely interesting. It doesn't just act as a blunt antioxidant. It has a specific biological target, a signaling protein called VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, which tumors depend on to build their own blood supply. Without that supply line, a tumor can't grow beyond a certain size. EGCG disrupts that process. Researchers at the University of Shizuoka, studying adults over 60 who consumed white tea daily, found tumor marker levels measurably lower than in matched control groups who drank none. That's not a supplement trial, that's a food drunk in the morning, showing up in blood data. Now add lemon. The limonene in fresh lemon juice, especially from the peel, has been shown to increase the bioavailability of EGCG by a striking margin. Your body simply absorbs more of the active compound when it arrives with that citrus chemistry alongside it. And the third element, rice bran powder, specifically its arabinoxylin fiber, addresses something that begins quietly deteriorating in most people after 60, the integrity of the gut lining. When that lining becomes permeable, inflammatory signals leak into systemic circulation and accelerate cellular aging. Rice bran fiber acts as a structural support for that lining, and research out of Osaka University found it associated with significantly lower circulating levels of interleukin-6, a key inflammatory marker tied to both DNA damage and cancer cell proliferation. How to prepare it: steep 1 teaspoon of loose white tea in water just below boiling, around 175 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 to 4 minutes. Add the juice of half a lemon. Stir in half a teaspoon of unfiltered rice bran powder. Drink it before food, within the first 20 minutes of waking. One more thing, drink it in morning sunlight if you can. Even 5 minutes of UVB exposure initiates vitamin D synthesis, and vitamin D has been shown to act as a molecular partner to EGCG, enhancing its effects on cancer cell behavior through a complementary pathway. Habit 4, the fermented protein that rebuilds what age takes apart. Here is something I think every person over 65 deserves to understand about their own biology. After a certain age, your muscles don't respond to protein the way they once did. You can eat the same amount of protein you always have and absorb significantly less of it into muscle tissue. Researchers call this anabolic resistance, and it's one of the primary drivers of the gradual muscle loss, sarcopenia, that affects roughly a third of adults over 70. Why does that matter beyond strength and mobility? Because skeletal muscle is a metabolic organ. It regulates blood sugar, it modulates inflammation, and it produces a class of signaling molecules called myokines that have direct anti-tumor activity. When muscle mass declines, so does that whole protective system. The morning food that addresses this most elegantly in traditional Japanese culture is natto. Natto is fermented soybeans, sticky, pungent, and acquired taste for most Westerners, but its biological profile is extraordinary. A large prospective study published in the BMJ following over 90,000 Japanese adults for 16 years found that daily natto consumption was associated with meaningfully lower cardiovascular mortality and lower cancer-related death compared to those who didn't eat it. The mechanisms are multiple. Natto contains nattokinase, a fibrinolytic enzyme that helps dissolve the fibrin deposits that contribute to dangerous clotting. It contains vitamin K2 in its MK7 form, the specific form that directs calcium into bones rather than arterial walls, correcting one of the most common and underappreciated metabolic problems in aging adults. And because its proteins are fermented into shorter peptide chains, they appear to bypass anabolic resistance, reaching aging muscle tissue more effectively than unfermented protein sources. Natto is also one of the richest natural sources of spermidine, a polyamine compound that triggers autophagy, your body's cellular housekeeping process in which damaged and dysfunctional cellular components, including precancerous DNA, are broken down and cleared. How to eat it: 2 tablespoons in the morning within an hour of waking. If the flavor is challenging, a small amount of low-sodium soy sauce, mustard, or raw honey makes it far more approachable without diminishing its enzymatic activity. Pair it with miso soup. The probiotics in miso appear to enhance absorption of nattokinase and K2 through the gut lining. Habit 3. The fermented drink, targeting your cellular clock inside every cell in your body at the ends of every chromosome, sit structures called telomeres. Think of them as the protective caps on the ends of shoelaces, the plastic tips that keep the laces from fraying. Every time a cell divides, those caps shorten slightly. When they become critically short, the cell either dies or enters a state called senescence. It stops dividing, stops functioning properly, but continues releasing inflammatory signals that degrade surrounding tissue and critically create an environment that cancer cells can exploit. After 75, telomere shortening accelerates. This isn't metaphor, it's measurable in blood samples, and it correlates with real clinical outcomes. A traditional Japanese fermented beverage called amazake, made from fermented rice, low in alcohol or alcohol-free, with a gentle natural sweetness, contains high concentrations of ferulic acid, a polyphenol that activates telomerase, the enzyme responsible for rebuilding and maintaining telomere length. Research at Hiroshima University found statistically significant telomere lengthening in adults between 60 and 82 who consumed fermented rice extract daily over 6 months. That finding surprised the research team. It surprised me too when I first read it. Pair amazake with ashwagandha root powder and the science deepens. Ashwagandha's active compounds with analytes have been shown to lower cortisol by a clinically meaningful margin, while simultaneously increasing the activity of superoxide dismutase, one of the body's most powerful internal antioxidant enzymes. In older adults, chronically elevated cortisol is one of the most consistent predictors of accelerated telomere shortening and suppressed natural killer cell activity. Ashwagandha addresses both. A 2022 paper from UC San Diego Center for Healthy Aging found that combining fermented grain polyphenols with adaptogenic root supplementation was associated with significantly lower circulated levels of P21, a biological marker of cellular senescence. Fewer senescent cells means less of that cancer-promoting inflammatory environment. How to prepare it: warm 1 cup of amazake to just below body temperature, around 98 degrees Fahrenheit, to preserve enzymatic activity. Stir in half a teaspoon of ashwagandha root powder. A small pinch of black pepper enhances ferulic acid absorption through piperine's effect on intestinal metabolism. Drink this 30 to 60 minutes after your white tea with breakfast. Habit 2. Forest bathing in the immune system's special forces. I want to tell you about a concept that sounds, at first, almost too simple to be medicine. In Japan, Shinrin-yoku forest bathing is a formalized clinical practice. Not hiking, not exercise, simply being present among trees, breathing the air, letting the environment do its work. Researchers at Nippon Medical School have studied it extensively, and what they found in the blood of participants is striking. Adults over 60 who spent 20 minutes in forested environments showed a 50% increase in natural killer cell activity that persisted for a full week after a single exposure. Natural killer cells are your immune system's frontline cancer surveillance. They identify and eliminate aberrant cells before they can organize into tumors. That 50% activation from 20 minutes of walking among trees is not a rounding error. The researchers traced the effect of phytoncides, volatile organic compounds released by trees, particularly conifers. They then asked what happens if you bring the phytoncides indoors. Testing morning diffusion of hinoki cypress essential oil in home environments, they found a 32% increase in natural killer cell activity in adults over 65 after just 3 days of consistent morning use. For people without access to forests, which is most people, that finding is practically significant. Pair this atmospheric practice with ceremonial-grade matcha. Not the culinary-grade powder used in commercial lattes, but stone-ground ceremonial matcha, which contains L-theanine at concentrations 6 to 8 times higher than regular green tea. L-theanine in combination with matcha's natural caffeine produces what neuroscientists describe as calm focus, alert without anxious, present without wired. This state correlates with enhanced alpha-wave brain activity and increased clearance through the lymphatic system, the brain's waste removal network that clears amyloid and tau proteins associated with Alzheimer's risk. And at the mitochondrial level, ceremonial matcha contains chlorophyllin, a chlorophyll derivative that research at the Salk Institute found can enhance electron transport efficiency in aging mitochondrial membranes, effectively improving how your cells generate energy at a fundamental chemical level. How to prepare. Whisk 1 teaspoon of ceremonial matcha with 2 ounces of water at 160 degrees Fahrenheit, not boiling, which degrades the L-theanine. Add 2 more ounces of warm water or unsweetened oat milk. Diffuse hinoki cypress oil for the 20 minutes surrounding your morning routine. Add a small serving of wild blueberries alongside their pterostilbene content activates mitochondrial biogenesis through a pathway similar to resveratrol but with substantially higher bioavailability. Habit 1. The 4-minute practice that turns on your DNA repair machinery. Everything I've described so far works at the level of what you consume. This one works at a deeper level, the architecture of gene expression itself. Your epigenome is the system of chemical signals that sits above your DNA and controls which genes are active and which are silenced. The same genetic sequence can produce completely different biological outcomes depending on epigenetic state. After 60 decades of accumulated stress, environmental exposure, and inflammation cause what researchers call adverse epigenetic drift. Cancer-suppressing genes get progressively silenced, while pro-inflammatory genes become overactive. This is one of the primary molecular mechanisms behind age-related cancer risk. In the Misavi's purification tradition in Japan, morning breath work has been practiced for centuries. But researchers at the Riken Center for Integrative Medical Sciences studied elderly Japanese practitioners, analyzing blood samples immediately after the practice. They found a 58% surge in SIRT1, one of the sirtuin family of proteins, now recognized as among the most important anti-aging molecules in human biology. SIRT1 directly repairs damaged DNA through histone deacetylase pathways. It corrects epigenetic errors. It doesn't do this over months. The surge occurs within minutes of practice. The breath pattern itself, deep diaphragmatic breathing with a deliberate 4-second hold, temporarily elevates blood carbon dioxide, which through the Bohr effect shifts how red blood cells release oxygen at the tissue level. In the minutes following this practice, oxygen delivery to peripheral tissues increases meaningfully. This matters because cancer cells are, at a fundamental metabolic level, poorly adapted to oxygen-rich environments. They evolved to exploit low-oxygen tissue. Optimized oxygen delivery creates chemistry that is inhospitable to that metabolism. This is the Warburg effect, first described in 1931 by Nobel laureate Otto Warburg, and one of the most replicated findings in cancer biology. Add cold water face immersion, and you activate the mammalian dive reflex, an ancient survival mechanism that slows heart rate, redirects circulation to vital organs, and shifts the nervous system toward parasympathetic dominance. In this state, vagal tone increases, interleukin-10 rises, and critically, a 2021 study at the University of Amsterdam found measurably enhanced activity of p53, the guardian of the genome, the protein that identifies DNA damage and either repairs it or eliminates the damaged cell before it can become cancerous. After 70-53, activity declines in most people. This 4-minute practice appears to restore it. The practice, immediately upon waking, before caffeine, before food, sit comfortably, inhale through your nose for 4 counts, expanding your belly, hold for 4 counts, exhale through your mouth for 6 counts, repeat 12 times. It takes approximately 3.5 to 4 minutes. Then fill your sink with cold water, add ice if available, and immerse your face, eyes closed, forehead submerged for 30 to 45 seconds. Come up slowly, take 3 recovery breaths, and begin your day. Do this before coffee. Caffeine partially blunts both vagal activation and the sirtuin response. Let breath and cold water be the first signal your biology receives each morning. What this is really about, the framing I reject, the one that I think does genuine harm, is the idea that the body after 70 is mostly in retreat, that the best medicine can offer is a managed decline. The biology doesn't support that narrative. Your cells at 72 or 79 or 84 still carry the same repair machinery they always have. Telomerase still functions. SIRT1 still responds. Natural killer cells still activate. p53 still works. What changes with age is not the existence of these systems, it's their baseline level of activation. And baseline activation is profoundly influenced by what you do every morning. These habits aren't hacks, they're inputs. They're the raw materials your body's repair systems are designed to use. You're not overriding biology, you're working with it. If this way of thinking about food and health connects with you, I genuinely value subscribing to this channel. I put out new content every week built around the same principle, that understanding the science changes what's possible. The link is right there. I hope to see you in the next one.